Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, August the 25th. And welcome to our commentary. I don't know how many of you saw some clips of this, video clips of this. I saw a little bit in the news. There have been some clips in YouTube, I guess you can watch. But it's the Democrats apparently had some kind of a convention, some kind of a meeting in Minneapolis in Minnesota. Now, I don't know what kind of a convention this was, whether this was just a Minnesota convention or whether it's a regional convention. I'm not sure exactly what brought them together. But they were together and they all gave some speeches. And Governor Walz, of course, gave a speech and he had to attack President Trump. Somebody else gave a speech. They had to attack President Trump. And basically, it was nothing more than a convention of attacking President Trump. That's all it was. That's all they said. There was nothing else at all that came out of this convention. They hate Trump. Trump is terrible. He's horrible. And we have to fight. We have to get up and fight. And we have to fight. And we have to fight. And we have to fight. And that's it. And that's it. And then they wonder why, when people are asked, what do you think of the Democrats? They give such an unfavorable point of view. They wonder why their brand is doing as bad as it's doing. Well, you don't need a consultant to tell you why. All you have to do is watch those videos. I mean, these people are disconnected from reality. They're not living in the same world that a lot of other people are living. Now, this is not to say that everything that President Trump is doing is perfect. He doesn't have the highest ratings either. He's in the high 40s, depending on what number you look at. The RCP average, as they like to call it, is about 46%, which is not a terrible number, frankly, given how visible he is and how much in your face he is and that kind of thing. This guy is on television every single day. I mean, President Trump. Today, he gave we watched a cabinet hearing, and he took over the cabinet hearing, and it was him all the way. So, we may get to a point where there's Trump saturation. I don't dispute that. But the Democrats are not helping themselves with the kind of way that they're trying to communicate with the American people. They're going to have to find a different way of talking to people. Now, I saw something the other day that they recommended that they drop some vocabulary. There's a bunch of things that Democrats say that a lot of people don't even understand what they're talking about. One of my favorite ones is reproductive rights. What does that mean, reproductive rights? Well, they know, but I don't know. A lot of people don't know. But anyway, so I just thought it was fascinating to watch clips. I didn't see the whole thing, but I thought it was interesting to watch clips of this convention or whatever it was, because you can see right there exactly everything that is wrong with this party. They're totally disconnected. They've been overrun by a bunch of elitists and people who think they're smarter than everybody else. And what they're doing is they're driving themselves into further insanity, and the brand is not getting better. And there doesn't appear to be a leader in the party who can speak to the American people. I'm not even talking somebody who competes with Trump. I'm talking about a leader, much the same way, for example, that after Jimmy Carter won the election in 1976 and the Republicans were a bit out in the wilderness, you had President Reagan step in, future President Reagan step in, and he started speaking, bringing Republicans together. Then you had, after President Obama won his election and he beat up, John McCain fairly well, you had the Tea Party and you had that movement, and you had a lot of people in the States beginning to stand up and, speak for the party. The Democrats don't have anything like that, because the only people speaking for the party right now are crazy nuts, like the ones that I saw up in Minneapolis or Minnesota, wherever that convention was. So they need to work on their delivery. They need to work on their message, because right now they don't have one that is going to win elections. And watching that conference or that convention or whatever that was, that's what comes out to me when I see that. Well, I've got a post over at the American Thinker today talking about Chicago and the Democrats. And it isn't really exclusively about Chicago. It's really about the big cities. Look, the big cities are in trouble in this country, and they're all run by Democrats. The trouble is crime. The trouble is the breakdown of infrastructure, just the breakdown of law and order, public schools that don't teach kids. I just saw a report, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that this incredible number of kids in Baltimore are graduating, and they don't graduate at the math level that they graduate. So you're graduating a kid, you're sending him out to the real world, and he cannot even do math at a 12th grade level. What do you think is going to happen to that kid? Nothing good, to say the least. Nothing good. Not, he's going to be having a lot of problems, that kid, when he gets older, because if you don't know how to do basic math, if you cannot do math at a 12th grade level, reading and subtracting or whatever, or adding and subtraction, if you can't do that, this is not going to be a very happy world that you're going to walk into. So the Democrat cities are falling apart, and they can blame Trump all they want. And I'm not saying that the only solution to these cities is to send the National Guard. I think in some cases, that's a solution. I think in Chicago, you got to do something about the crime. 5 people were killed this weekend, and unfortunately, that happens a lot in Chicago. So Chicago may be a place where the National Guard could do something worthwhile. But in most of the cities, it's not really the National Guard. It's the people running the city who don't seem to care at all about the citizens. When your public schools are graduating kids who can't read and write at the level they graduate, the National Guard is not going to do anything about that. And if the local politicians don't want to help the parents by providing school choice or something else, you're condemning these kids to a life of failure. How are any of these kids going to do well in school when they graduate and they can't do math or reading at whatever level they graduate? So the Democrats have a lot of problems in these cities. And the post that I wrote today, even though it's focusing on Chicago, it kind of applies to all the cities. It seems to me that what would really help many of these Democrat cities, and frankly would help the country a lot, is if the president and some of these Democrat leaders would come together and form a partnership to turn these cities around. It's not really a Democrat or Republican issue. It's an American issue. And cities are a big part of our history, a big part of our country. And cities that are not graduating kids who can read and write, cities where crime is a problem, city where the infrastructure is falling apart, cities where taxpayers are moving away, that's not a healthy thing. I don't care what party runs it. So what I'm hoping for is that maybe there's a Democrat out there who says, you know what? We don't like President Trump, but darn it, I don't like the problems in Baltimore either, or I don't like the problems in Chicago. So let's get together and try to do something. And it's a win-win situation. And I'll give you the example of Illinois. The governor of Illinois and President Trump would work together to fix the problems of Chicago. The president would get some points out of this, but so would the governor of Illinois. Okay, the governor of Maryland is another one who I think should be using this opportunity to work with President Trump and turn Baltimore around. So all of these things people should be working together, because working together is actually going to make these cities better, and it's going to help the Democrats running these cities, not just President Trump. Well, let me add a comment here about this driver. Turned out to be an illegal alien who was driving in Florida, I guess, with a license that he got in California. I'm learning about this, but I've got a post coming out tomorrow. And I'm wondering how much the insurance company knew that this guy was driving in Florida, this truck, and that he was an illegal alien and all of that. And I say the insurance companies because insurance companies are very picky about the people who drive the trucks they insure. And you have to wonder, how many insurance companies are looking at these trucking companies and say, we're going to audit all of your drivers right now. Because every time they have an accident on the road, one of these trucks, especially if they kill somebody, the insurance company has to write some very big checks. And that incident in California is going to end up costing not only the company, the trucking company, but the insurance company is going to end up paying a big chunk of change for that incident. And it should have never happened. It should have never happened. The idea that you have a driver driving one of these rigs who doesn't even speak English, doesn't even know the traffic signs. I mean, that's just the utter irresponsibility. How in the world does that happen? Well, it did happen. It did happen, and I think 3 people are dead. And that is just absolutely unforgivable. Whether it's the trucking company, obviously the driver, but somebody's got to pay for this, and somebody will. Somebody will. Believe me, somebody will. It's not going to be pretty for that trucking company that hired somebody like this to be driving one of their trucks. Well, let me take you back in history just for a quick second here. This week in 1968, you had the Democrats' convention in Chicago. Turned out to be a total disaster for the Democrats. You had violence in the streets, confrontations with the police. It was a pretty nasty convention. They ended up nominating Hubert Humphrey, Vice President Hubert Humphrey, and Ed Muskie, Senator from Maine. And that team, Humphrey and Muskie lost to Richard Nixon that year. But this convention did the Democrats a great deal of harm because the more radical elements of the party took over the convention and destroyed the party. And the party sort of has been going downhill ever since. They had a little momentum there with Clinton and with Obama, but it seems like once again they're going crazy left on us. But that convention back in 1968 was quite a mess for the Democrats. And well, I have a funny feeling that their next convention is going to be quite a mess as well, especially when the mayor, who more than likely is going to be the mayor of New York, this person Mandami, when he speaks, that convention is going to be a very interesting place to watch. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.